And I just want to say, Frances, I'm just so grateful to you that you're speaking to our little group today. Someone with all your decorations and, you've done so many things. And our group is about aspirations and mindset. And as someone who's been so decorated, we just want to have the opportunity to speak to someone who has been through the whole process. Somebody put it in the chat actually earlier on about how you transformed from your career to another career as well. That's one of the questions we've had in the group. So if you could cover that as well. But if you could just start and just tell us a bit about you, because it's such an interesting story, how you actually started getting into your sports career.
My world. Oh, well, thanks very much for being. It's just a pleasure to be here and to, I know we're only meeting virtually, but it's so thanks very much for reaching out and asking. It's amazing the power of the internet, isn't it? You can reach out and connect.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to
hear. You spoke about aspiration, and maybe that's like a good place to start. So I wouldn't say as a young person I had high aspirations, and I really, really wasn't sporty in the sort of sporty sense. I looked at sporty people and I thought, oh, I'd love to be sporty. Oh my God, I'd be sporty. And my elder sister was really sporty. And every time I turned up to sort of PE class at school, the teachers would initially get really excited. Oh, you're even taller, you're going to be even better than her. And then they'd see that I was much happier rooted to the spot than actually moving at all. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do to stop being compared to her is, and being a perpetual disappointment, is choose the only sport she hasn't tried, and that was rowing. And I just took to it straight away. I am an introvert. I'm self-confessed introvert, people say. But, I like being in my own space, and rowing was really the perfect thing for that. But ironically, now that I look back, sport, and in particular this team sport, was actually the ideal vehicle for me to engage with others, have something to talk about, share the aspirations that we had. It was a real kind of transformation for me from, really just trying to get control over my own little world, sort of getting hooked on it. And actually, to start with, although I was very surprised to be any good at it, and I just thought I'll carry on until everyone else overtakes me. Once I was hooked on it, I did set my aspirations really, really high. I said, I want to go to the Olympic Games, I want to become an Olympic champion, I want to be the best in the world. I mean, why not just go for everything? And actually, this is sort of the main sort of umbrella story of my book, really, is how seeking for gold all the time, it works for a certain amount of time, but after a while I actually realized this is working against me, and really I need to change my mindset, actually think about how do I want to feel when I get there? Not just I want to get there, but how do I want to feel when I stand on that podium? And that really changed my mindset, really changed to what I really, really aspired to, which was to stand on a podium with my arms around my teammates, to hug them, to share the moment, to genuinely feel like we were in it together and we understood each other. And so that's what I aspired to by the end, and that unlocked so much more. Not only did it unlock sort of the fulfillment in it, the enjoyment in the everyday of it, but actually unlocked a lot of performance as well. So that's a kind of synopsis of where I started and where I got to.
Well, you said so many interesting things there, because you started off by talking about your sister. And we all do that, don't we? We sort of make these comparisons, but we've all got these gifts or abilities or potential within us already. But we tend to look at other people and see what they're doing, and you sort of learn. I don't know if you feel this way, but you learn along the way that you've got something different to offer. But your sister's doing all these different sports, and you were saying the only sport that she isn't doing, and that was what you went for. But it's interesting that you felt that way initially, and you said it's about how you would feel as well, because the feeling and the visioneering is absolutely huge for performance. Would you say?
I would. And I think the key question for me is, what would make the hard work worth it? So, all of us work really hard in our everyday lives, whether that's in sport or in business or just at home trying to keep the wheel turning round. And it was a really helpful question for me to ask myself, okay, well, I want to do this and it is going to be hard. but at the end of it, what would make that hard work worth it? If I stood on the podium, held a medal and thought, actually, I didn't enjoy that, and I don't really have a lasting relationship with the people that I was with, then for me, that wouldn't make the hard work worth it. If I stood there, with maybe a lesser medal, or hopefully with the gold medal that I wanted, or even with no medal at all, but I knew that I had unlocked everything I possibly could, both in myself, but most importantly with those around me, and maybe help them discover more about themselves and what we could do together, then whatever happened, whatever the outcome, the hard work would be worth it.
Yeah, and the way you talk about unlocking, so it's almost as if something was locked until you made a decision to go ahead and do something. And this is something that we hear about in the personal development world so much. It's about unlocking potential, and you made a decision and you were committed to that. And this is what Napoleon Hill talks about in the book, Think and Grow Rich. You have to have a burning desire, make a decision. And as you make the decision, things start opening up, coming towards you. And it's so interesting that that's how you actually explained it, unlocking.
Well, it's sort of very, very much, there was a point in my career. So I had done 4 Olympic Games. I really wanted to get to a 5th, but I was really burnt out. It was unlikely I was going to make the team. I kept getting injured. I was really stressed. I so wanted us to win, and I so believed I knew how we could make us win. But my stress was like going outward onto everyone else. Everyone else felt awful. I wasn't a joy to be around. And I just burnt out. And I realized that actually I had to confront myself. I knew that I would not get to another Games, let alone win, with this mindset of being totally focused on winning. And so what I said was, Fran, you've got to shake hands with what to you is defeat, to not win. You've got to shake hands with it. You've got to reconcile yourself with failure, because to me that's failure. But once you've done that, and now we're going to redefine success, because I accept that that's not working. But I have to look at myself in the eye and shake hands with it and accept it.
I love that.
That's how I'm going to redefine. And you know what? It was amazing, because I had a string of injuries for maybe 2-3 years up until that point.
Yeah.
And it was like when I sorted what was right for me in my mindset and articulated it, it was like this hose pipe of stress untwisted.
Wow.
And the hose pipe is like so full, and it's like so stressed, and there's like holes in it, there's water pouring out everywhere. That was my stress and everyone else, and it untwisted. And then if I didn't get injured again for the next 2 years, I was in so much a better place. And I always say to athletes that I mentor now, to being in a good place mentally is a component part of your optimum performance. It's not a nice to have. It's a component part that you need to prioritize in the jigsaw of your preparation of your everyday.
Yes.
So, to me, it was that hose pipe.
That hose pipe thing, that analogy is so inspiring, because we like when the water's coming through the hose pipe, it can be twisted up and it can be blocked. Yeah. It can be blocked like I hear many people talking about that. You can actually block the hose pipe and there could be a kink in it, and nothing's flowing. Stuff like, and it's only when you realise that. And interestingly, you said, that you felt a certain way, something was a failure, but you didn't say that you were a failure. And that's the difference. That's a huge difference.
And I think underlying all of this was that I had a fundamental belief in myself, and a belief in my body and myself as a person. And I'm really, really keen to emphasize with people that I just think it's so important that all of us give ourselves permission to believe in ourselves.
Oh my! Okay. You've got so much good advice for us all. Honestly, it's poetry.
People think, perhaps they don't want to be arrogant. They don't want to. They don't want to put themselves forward. But you know what? It's okay to believe in yourself.
Yes.
Give yourself permission to do that as a starting point. And it can be a constant, underlying, part of yourself to believe in yourself. And, you talked about unlocking as well. And for my teammates, I very much tried to instill a belief, not only that I tried to instill in them from me, but also for them to have in themselves, that you as your natural self is your most powerful self. So it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to believe in yourself and fully express yourself. And the most that I could unlock in my teammates so that they could fully express themselves, that was where we were trying to get to. And then we were a group of fully unlocked individuals working together to try and do the same thing.
How about that? That's powerful, because it's like some of the things that I've come across, like some of the course and things I've done, it's about when you say a group of unlocked people, it's like that battery pack, isn't it? Where you've got all these different battery packs, individual batteries, and you come together and you're just so powerful. And when you've got a group of people who are unlocked and they believe in themselves and they're focused and they're going for, you know, what they actually believe in, and that self-belief and self-image, that's not always easy, is it? Especially like you said, you were injured, and then you had gaps in your career when maybe you weren't competing. I know in particular that the German win was huge for you when you beat the German team.
Yeah.
Because they're always winning, weren't they? Yeah. How did that come about? That's so interesting.
So I was in a crew. I was probably 20. I think I was 23 at the time, and we were put together. And we weren't the top individuals, but we really understood each other. We'd actually come up through the ranks as junior. 3 of us had come up through the ranks as young people at the same age. We'd been rivals, but we had always supported each other. We were good friends. And there was the 4th girl was a lot older, but she was probably took herself less seriously than we did at that point. You know, when you're young and you're like, no, I need to strive. And she was much more like, okay, you know, let's have a bit of perspective.
Yeah.
So we were a really good combination, and we were quite self-aware. So one of the things that we knew might be a blocker was that we were all introverts, and we thought, hang on a minute, that, you know, we could just go into our shells and just, you know, be running our own thing. So we must be very aware and proactive about our blind spots, and constantly ask, okay, so what are we missing? And I think the ability to have honest conversations with each other, because of the relationship we had, and that we trusted each other and we respected each other, that meant that we were able to have these, because I'd say like honesty is the honesty unlocks like the last door to progress. You know, it's so important to be able to have those honest conversations. So whether it's
honesty unlocks the last door to progress.
Or a bad day.
Yeah. So when you knew you were coming up against the German team again, how did you gather together? What was your focus and what was your mindset? Because
we knew that at the end of the day, you can't control what other people do.
Yeah.
So what happened was 6 weeks before the Olympic Games, we beat the Germans for the first time ever. Beat the Germans before. And then they swapped their crew around to put their equivalent, not quite as many Olympic gold medals as Sir Steve Redgrave, but almost like his women's equivalent as Steve Redgrave. They put in their crew because they were like, well, it's the only one going to beat the British. Yeah. So we go to the Olympics thinking, well, we know that, you know, we're still fast, but it's a bit annoying that they've made their crew even stronger. Yeah. Even so, the only thing that any of us can do is work on ourselves and make us the best that we can possibly be. Yeah. Worry about what other people might do is not going to make us faster. Yeah. And that was always something that I really tried to keep our eye on. You know, try not to worry about what might happen, but focus on what you know you can do. Yes. So our time was spent on articulating, clarifying, practicing what we knew we could do, like literally like every day, like what are the movements, what's the preparation we know we can do. Yes. Keep focused on that. Whenever the mind jumps forward and worries about what might happen, bring it back. I don't know what might happen, but I know what I can do. So this is all coming from within. This is why aspiration is a good word, because it has to come from within, and you're not competing with other people. It's almost like you're competing with yourself. You want to grow and progress in your own performance, and it's a waste of time looking at what other people are doing. Obviously, you know what team they might have, but if you focus on yourself and your own strengths and how you can improve and perform well, that seems like that's the best way to perform as a high performer, to focus
on what you believe you're capable of.
Yeah, I mean, having an awareness of others can motivate us, and it
Yeah.
gives us energy, and it gives us nervous energy, and that is that's a part of the whole kind of jigsaw. But essentially, when as with everything, there's a tipping point. So when awareness or worry about other people becomes a distraction, or it just doesn't serve you anymore in your aspiration, that's when the line needs to be drawn. That thought and worry about those other people, that isn't serving me, it's not contributing to my project, so that's enough now.
And do you think that all these learnings that you've had through your career, has that impact, like from your sporting career to this, like your everyday living, this process that you have? Do you think that's assisted you and helped you in like the transferring to different avenues in your life? Because I know you're doing cooking and things like that, aren't you? And it's so funny because my children laugh at me, because even that sort of going up the stairs, because I've got a sporting background, obviously not like yours, but I have, is that when you get this competitive side to you, although it's not, obviously you're working on yourself, you just want to do your best, so even sort of sometimes in my imagination I was going upstairs and I was lunging for a line, I was like, do you know what I mean? And the person had no idea what I was doing. So do you have that kind of mindset where you just want to get the best out of what you can out of yourself?
I do. I mean, I think the first thing to acknowledge about the difference between sport, doing elite sport, and then coming out into like the normal and the real is that in sport, it's it's an absolute privilege to be able to do something where you have one goal, and in your work life and your whole life, it's you have many things around you helping you make that the priority and the only goal. And when you come out into, so every day in any decision you make, what time you get up, what you're going to eat, whether you're, what social decisions you in our normal lives. I mean, goodness, we've all got we've got goals at home, we've got pressing things at home, it would be like living a normal life, but with a PA and a cook and a motivator and everything. We'd all love that. So first of all, I just acknowledge that living, doing sport and living in the normal world is, they're two different things. But yes, there are lots of things that I take from it. I think one of the things, even when I'm confronted by challenge every day now, I remember that those that I saw over my career that were most successful in sport, champions were the ones that moved quickest from judgment about a situation to action about it.
Oh,
that gap between the two, like that
knowing and doing.
They didn't get stuck in the sticky bit of judging themselves, chastising themselves, wondering what was going on, blaming other people, any of that. That bit was just kept to, okay, that wasn't what I wanted to happen. What do I keep from that experience and keep doing?
Yes.
What do I learn from it and discard? And now what's the plan?
Yeah, it's like quick execution.
So I try not to get stuck in the sticky bit.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because it's like what we call the knowing doing gap. So you know what you need to do. And the gap between knowing that and doing it, seems like people who are successful, it's very short. You turn things around very quickly and then you go.
Yeah.
The longer you take to make these decisions, it can cause like a situation that you don't want. So you've got to act and execute quickly.
Yeah, and I think also you often don't know whether that decision is the right decision.
Yeah.
But in sport, you have to make it turn out to be the right decision. So instead of wondering whether it's the right one or the wrong one, or taking a long time to pick, you choose one and then you do everything you can to make sure that was the right one. So it's a kind of, I guess it's being constantly aware of and trying to control your mindset around where you're at.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, when I was sort of so excited that you were coming, you've done so much more than, obviously you're a 5-time Olympian. You've got world championship, you're world champion. Can you sort of just go through your achievements? I know you're an introverted person, but it's so impressive and so encouraging to everyone, from an early age, you just performed.
So as a synopsis, I started rowing age 11, which is very young for a girl. You know, some boys start around 13, 14, but most women start at university. So I had a head start.
Yeah.
But I rowed as a junior and was a quite successful junior. I won a world medal and quickly then transitioned into the senior team, and that enabled me to go to my first games in Sydney 2000, when I was 19. So that's really young for a rower in an endurance sport, but because I started early, you know, I had time to get ready. And I actually came last in Sydney, but it was the most incredible experience. You know, people say now, you know, it's the athletes' games, and the Australians are just so sports mad, so supportive. It was just such a dream. I was a kid in a candy shop. It was amazing. And I knew stepping onto the plane that I probably wouldn't do very well, but I made the decision. I said, right, when I take that step onto that plane.
Yes, you made the decision,
I'm going to make it a positive experience. So I'm going to like anything negative that comes into my brain. I've worked so hard for this. I'm going to make it positive, and I'm going to appreciate that, you know, I would have bitten anyone's hand off to have this opportunity 6 months ago. So I'm here, and I'm going.
That was your first Olympics.
That was my first Olympics. Second Olympics, we've actually just spoken about that team there. Fantastic team. We actually won our first. It was my first international senior medal, and we won the Olympic silver. Standing on the podium in Athens, I looked across and I thought, I want to be standing in the middle next time. So that was my focus for the next 4 years. We actually didn't win in Beijing. We got silver to the Chinese. It was the first time they had won, and obviously massive thing for the Chinese to win on home water. But amazing thing to be a part of. But you know, sometimes people ask me now, you know, how, you know, sort of, you know, do you get nervous for things, or, you know, trying to put things in perspective? And I say, well, in Beijing we were favourites to win, and I failed in front of 3 billion people. So you know, I think once you've done that, most things you think, well, it can't be that bad. So at least it provided me that platform. And also it's still an incredible experience to go through with people. You know, we put out our best and it wasn't good enough. And it really, really made me value that, you know, it's not just about the medal, it's about what you
become in the journey.
I then had quite a big injury. I ended up having an operation, and I did go to the London Games, but I knew that I wouldn't be on great form. But rewind slightly, when I came back from Sydney, I had such a great experience. I said, so before I went to Sydney, I said, I'm going to do 1 Games and then I'm going to get a proper job. And I came back from Sydney and I said, I want to try and get to 5 Games. I want to be the first woman ever to go to 5 Games.
5 Games,
It was amazing actually, because I went straight back to university at King's College London. I was studying Spanish and Latin for my sins. But I was on my scooter on the embankment, and there was some red traffic lights on red just at Battersea Bridge. And I remember sitting there, and it was a bit drizzly, and I was just remembering what an incredible experience it had been to be an Olympian and to be in Sydney and to see some of the, you know, Cathy Freeman winning Olympic gold.
I was thinking that was when Cathy Freeman won that 400.
Yeah, I was in the stadium when that happened, you know, being a part of the opening ceremony, all of those things. And I just, you know, whilst the traffic lights are red, I just, you know, lifted my visor, wiped away the sort of fog, and I looked at my hand and I thought, I counted out on my fingers how many more Olympics I could go to, and I realised, you know what, I could be the first woman in rowing in Britain to go to 5 Games. That's what I want to do. So fast forward again, when I knew that I wasn't on great form in London, I still knew that my aspiration was to try and get to Rio. And although it was still quite injury ridden, I did manage to get there in 2016. So yeah.
Yes. So it's amazing the way you were thinking, and so many things are significant. As that Steve Jobs said, when you look back at the journey, that's when the dots sort of add up.
Look back, you join the dots.
The different decisions that you made, and you counted it on your hand. And it's almost like that pulled you towards it, and that's what we get to do with our goals. If we can have a focus point. And when did you start thinking about the book? Because it's really important to mention the book that you've.
Well, I think actually this was when I was going to mention it actually. So, you know, we've just been talking about my kind of career timeline, just to show I might sound quite kind of articulate now, but this is sort of this is the ups and downs of
I'm
what
gonna put that in the group.
learn that stuff. Yeah, we'll put that in the group. Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
I'm just checking. Yeah,
and I know I did learn so much along the way, which is why I felt like I had so much of value in my mind that I'd learned. And my book it's called Learnings from 5 Olympic Games.
Yes,
and it's not really about rowing. It's more about the mindset and self-awareness and mind management and understanding what the human side of performance. So I talk about really the as I say, like the thinking, the way that I thought, the way that changed, working with others, how we confronted challenges, and that sort of when we'd had a bad day on the water, we didn't think, oh, that's the reason why we're never going to win. We thought, okay, well, if we were already the Olympic champions, we'd probably say, it's really interesting. It's not frustrating. It doesn't say we can't do it.
Yeah.
But what is it telling us? And be interested rather than frustrated. And one big thing was about confidence. People talk a lot about confidence in sport and just general life. But actually, what I really learned, I challenged myself to understand, okay, so what makes me feel confidence? What are the component parts for me? And I talk about it in my book here. It's about, for me, it was a formula of trust and belief.
Yes.
So it was when I trusted the instructions, and I trusted the people around me, and I had fundamental belief in myself.
Yes.
Confidence is completely irrelevant, and I don't like to talk about confidence as a needed thing. It's just, confidence is something that will wax and wane and will quickly desert you. But if you trust your preparation, if you fundamentally believe in yourself, you trust the people you're with, and that for me, that made me feel calm. So therefore I was ready, and I was able to give everything that I could of myself on that day. And that therefore makes confidence irrelevant.
Yes. So that's such an interesting concept, because it can be applied, not just, like you say, not just to sport, it can be applied throughout, in different facets of your life. And you can live by that, and you mentioned about belief. How big is a belief play its part in your journey?
Yeah. Well, I say that my belief in myself was the thing that kept putting the keys in the ignition.
Yeah.
When 99% of me thought I couldn't carry on, there was this 1% that just wouldn't go away, and that was this fundamental belief. And it was the thing that just kept me going to training. And I can't give that to other people, but I can say, if you have an inkling of it, it's okay to talk to it and to say it, come with me.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so important you tell us where we can get your book. Is it?
So my book, I have self-published it. It's because I really wanted to make sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was completely true. I didn't want it to be skewed so that it would reach a certain audience or speak a certain way.
Wow. Well done for that.
that was tough. That's a whole different podcast. It's called Learnings from 5 Olympic Games, and it's available through my website, which is www.franceshoughton.co.uk. That's Frances with an E, and then Houghton, Houghton. And that's also how people can contact me, find out more about what I do, coaching, mentoring, speaking.
Yes.
It was very, very important to me to write it myself. And I've actually produced it all locally down in Cornwall where I live. So I have a great little printer down here, and we just print as many as are needed, and it's amazing. It's gone worldwide. I think one day I had an order from Bondi Beach and from an oil rig off Aberdeen. So it's gone everywhere.
All over the world.
It has gone all over the world.
Incredible. So to bring up to date now, Frances, what are you doing now? I know you're doing you're qualified as a chef, haven't you?
I am. Did do some cooking. I sort of drew that to a close before the pandemic. I really wanted to focus on sport. So I do a lot of mentoring. During Tokyo, I was mentoring and, having useful conversations, let's say, with the coaches and support staff and athletes out in Tokyo, and I've started working now with those looking to 2024.
In France.
The ball keeps rolling pretty quickly.
Yes.
But you know, it's really important to get to know people that as we all know, that we're working with, and you know, there will be, as there were for me, so many ups and downs along the way, and to learn as much as we can, so that when we get to Paris in 2024, we know ourselves and we know what works for ourselves and each other as best we can. So yeah, a lot of work going into that at the moment. I also work with UK sport on things like for different sports, articulating what it takes to win.
Yes.
And to enjoy doing that as well, not just really to do that. Yeah. And I'm part of the mental health steering group for UK sport, which is aiming to put mental health provision on a par with physical health provision, which is a big ask, seeing as there's a lot of physical, a lot of help with physical side of things, but you know, education and awareness and availability of support for the mental health of elite athletes and the system as a whole.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because mental health is coming back more and more and more in sports, and people are being prepared to speak more about it openly, and so to have that support for the athletes is so important. So just finally, what would you like to say about, as people who've got aspirations, and that 1% they've got in them, they need to let that out somehow? What advice would you give us to go for that thought or that aspiration within us? What advice would you give us?
I'd say it is your own journey, and you won't always feel like it. You won't always feel it. That's okay. That's not the reason why you're not going to get there. That's just completely natural. Just keep putting the keys in the ignition. Just keep putting the keys in the ignition. Yeah. You've got some really good phrases and sayings that we can get. And the one about honesty is the gateway to progress. I love that one. I mean, I could put that up on my wall. Honesty is the gateway. Yeah. Well, I quite like, so what I had, so actually my book is full of, so I did a lot of sketching when I was I always tried to make things as simple as possible. You know, there are so many words around, aren't there? And that's why I didn't want to produce a big book. I wanted to make it as succinct and tangible, accessible, digestible as possible. Yeah. So as people say, you can read it on the toilets, which is you can come back to it. You know, I'd say, look, you know, this was really the pyramid that I tried to bring to my teams. You know, you have fundamental belief at the base of it all. Yes. You have trust. Yeah. And then you have honesty. Yes. And then you can make I love it. I love it. Well, I think we should all go out and get your book, because it's very aspirational, and that's what we're here for. It's about sharing aspirational content. So I just want to say thank you so much for the time you spent with us today. I know you've got a conversation, but yeah, I mean, it's so interesting and so inspiring and aspiring as well. And I just can't thank you enough. Absolutely, no, thank you, and so many best wishes to you and to everyone out there. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you, Frances.